Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, members, officers, members of the public, internet viewers around the world to this meeting of the council. Before the meeting starts, I would invite the committee. Oh, jolly good. As long as that's not the most intelligent interruption I'm going to get this evening from you, Ralph. I would like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to update you on the systems being used and confirm that officers in remote attendance are present.
Good evening. Can I confirm the following officers joining remotely can hear us and that we can hear them? Natasha Jindal.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good
Are there
evening.
other officers in attendance remotely tonight that I haven't called out? Rules of debate. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. The normal procedure rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. Voting. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room and the result will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote, the chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? I will now hand back to the chair.
Thank you, Susan. Right, apologies for absence. We've received apologies for absence from councillors Sean Prendergast, Lisa Nash, Claire Billing, Dominic Griffiths, and just now from Bryony May. And I wish her well because she had a hip operation today. So I wish her a speedy recovery and welcome her to the club of us that set off alarms as we go through airport security. Are there any further apologies? No. Okay. Oh, Martin, sorry.
I'm feeling Councillor Patmore would apologise for either lateness or not being here, but I'm not entirely sure what his reason would be.
Okay, well, we'll hold our breath in anticipation that he's just late, I think.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2 minutes. I propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meeting of full council held on the 4th of December 2025. And there he is. And you forgot about David as well. And he's there. Good evening. Okay, so I'm proposing that we take and as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meeting of full council held on the 4th of December 2025. Could I have a seconder? Sadie, thank you very much indeed. Are there any comments on the minutes? No. Then, unless you desperately want to vote, can we just do it by acclamation? You're happy with the minutes? Thank you very much. Notification of other business has been none. Chair's announcements, recording in accordance with council policy. This meeting is recorded. The recordings will be available on both the council's YouTube page as well as the council's ModGov site alongside the documentation from the meeting. Climate emergency and ecological emergency. Members are reminded that this council has declared both a climate emergency and an ecological emergency. These are serious decisions and mean that as these are emergencies, all of us, officers and members, have that in mind as we carry out our various roles and tasks for the benefit of our district. More details are included on the agenda front sheet. Declarations of interests. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. Detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. Rules of debate. Please can I remind you that the normal procedure rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. No speeches may be made after the mover has moved a motion and explained the purpose of it until the motion has been seconded. When seconding a motion or amendment, a member may reserve their speech until later in the debate. In accordance with the Constitution, Please can members ensure that no speech exceeds 3 minutes without the consent of the chair? I was going to add a fourth one there, but I thought if I call it a rule, I'll get a sharp intake of breath from my left. This is just a request. There are only 3 minutes and there's a lot to get through. So and we've got no elections here per county or district this year. So can we try and avoid party political broadcasts and just do the work? Thank you. Comfort break. For the purposes of clarification, 4.8.23a of the Constitution does not apply to this meeting. Therefore, a member may leave the room during the debate and consideration of that item and be able to vote. However, please be mindful of the business on the agenda and wherever possible, leave at an appropriate point in the proceedings. I will call for a comfort break at an appropriate time should proceedings continue at length. Councillor Claire Strong. Claire.
Sorry, and apologies for my lateness in coming in. I'd like to declare an interest on item 17 as I am a member, I'm a sub on the Planning and Control Committee. I will be leaving the chamber and will not be taking part in the debate. Thank you.
Okay, that's so noted. Item 5, public participation. There is none this evening. Item 6, items referred from other committees. 6A, the Standards Committee to be considered with item 13. And the second adoption of the Monitoring Officer protocol from them is to be considered with item 14. Finance Audit and Risk to be considered with item 8. Referral from Cabinet Council Tax Reduction Scheme to be taken with agenda item 9. And the referral from Cabinet on the second quarter Treasury Management Review to be taken with item 7, which is just about where we're going at the moment. So item 7. Second quarter Treasury Management Review 2025 to 26. Paul Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just declare my interest in this item as usual by nature of my employment, and I'll disappear for a bit.
Of course. Thank you. Councillor Ian Albert. Ian.
Cheers. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. This paper is an update on the investment of our surplus cash. I think it's positive that our forecast investment returns, as you'll see, have increased to nearly £2 million. As was highlighted at the Finance Committee, the estimates for 26-27 will be reviewed as part of the budget setting process. It should also right to point out the report does highlight a breach of the Treasury strategy and the extra control that will be put in place to help and ensure that doesn't happen again. So in addition to that, we obviously both at Cabinet and I know at FAR, obviously was the discussion around our local authority investments that were secure even when a council had been issued with a section 114 notice, which meant that any investments with that council had to be repaid. And so we have real security in our investments. Details of the total interest earned to date, as well as the forecast, are outlined in paragraph 8.3 of the report. The percentages of the splits of investment are set out in paragraph 8.4, and full details on the investments, including the risk and credit rating details, are found in paragraph 8.5. And finally, Chair, I wanted just to formally mention that following the motion from full council that was carried at the end of 2025, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with our investment advisor to help to undertake a full review of our investment strategy, which was part of that motion that was carried at council, and that the outcome will be reported back to Cabinet and full council as part of agreeing the investment strategy for 26-27. But I just wanted to report that piece of work, as was requested in the motion that was passed, is underway, and we'll come back with full reports at all our finance meetings next month. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much. Right. Do we have any questions? No. Okay. I note on the recommendation, I'm asked to remind you that the wording is slightly different to the recommendation within the report itself, as the published report states that Cabinet recommends, but the recommendation should be and will be that Council notes the position of Treasury management activity as at the end of September 2025. Is that all correct? Yes. So are you proposing that, Ian? And can I have a seconder, please? Val Bryant.
Happy second.
Thank you very much. Any debate on that? I'm seeing none, so can we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Would somebody like to? Oh, Paul is there. Good. Thank you. I had visions of you being lost there for a moment. Okay, we go to item 8, which is the updated financial regulations. Ian Cooper, I think, is to present this referral from FAR and the report.
Thank you, Chair. This is a slightly overdue updates of financial regulations. The appendix has all the detail of the proposed changes. The table at the front, which details in order the changes and the reasons for those changes. And then there's track changes in the document itself, so you can see where they relate to. As referenced, it has been through Finance Audit and Risk Committee, where there's quite a good discussion around some changes. In the table, I've referenced those changes, so that shows where those recommendations have been put into the report. As detailed in the report itself, there was one recommendation that FAR suggested, paragraph 4.4, where I think in practice it's not possible to reflect what they said was a good idea, just for the sheer practicalities about how some thresholds would work. Hopefully reason in 5.4 explains why that is. I think I'll just go stop at that point, but if there are any questions, have to try and answer any of them.
Thank you, Ian. Any questions or comments? I'm seeing none. So there is a recommendation that the council agrees to the adoption of the financial regulations as per Appendix A. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Albert. Ian.
Yep, happy to move, Chair.
And a seconder? Leader Val Bryant.
Happy second.
Thank you. Any debate on that? No request for debate, so can we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. We're on to item 9, the Council Tax Reduction Scheme, Effectiveness and Proposals for 2026-27. This is a referral from Cabinet and Councillor Ian Albert to present. Ian.
Cheers. Thank you, Chair. And this is always, I think, one of the, I think it was a really important debate and paper for this council. And I think right, and we should be right as a council, right across party, to be proud of the work that both our officers do on our council tax reduction scheme, supporting our residents in need. But I think actually the policy itself, the banded scheme, and the work that we've done over to continue to improve that, and I think hopefully that this will be supported unanimously by the council. Thanks obviously to all those staff involved, but obviously, and thanks obviously to colleagues in overview and scrutiny for the discussion that they had on that. As I say, we've been asked to approve the changes to the council tax reduction scheme for 26-27, including the changes to the discretionary policy. This was incorporated into a wider report that overview and scrutiny asked for in relation to the effectiveness of our council tax reduction scheme. That part of the scheme shows that it's difficult to measure effectiveness, but we have a scheme that works well in being affordable and targeting support. And it also ensures that our poorest residents do not need to pay any council tax and get 100% relief. A campaign by Marie Curie to prevent residents from dying in poverty, and the actions that local authorities could take to address this through council tax reductions are described in paragraph 8.14. And paragraph 8.18 mentions continued contact with Marie Curie. We have had a further reply from them, and they recognise the complexity involved and feel that local councils are best placed to determine exactly how support should be implemented. So as our council tax reduction scheme already ensures that our poorest residents don't pay any council tax, we believe this is best covered through an addition to our discretionary policy to ensure that no one falls through the net. But obviously we will keep this under review. We will continue to work both with other local councils, with the Marie Curie team, and to see how this goes, and obviously look for further improvements as necessary in coming years. But we are very much, I think, in advance and wanting to support our residents most in need on this. Paragraph 8.19 mentions that inflationary uplifts to the bands. With the increases to the Universal Credit Awards expected to be around 6%, we look at increasing the bands by around 6%. This is to stop households falling into paying council tax, and the council tax they're then due to pay eroding the benefit of the increase in the benefits that they receive. And I hope that colleagues here will welcome that's approach, that if we have a banded system, we do need to look at increasing our bands. As the universal credit increases have not been finally confirmed, we need to wait for those and complete the final modelling to ensure it has the desired outcome. That outcome being that a similar number of households will be eligible for council tax reduction. So, Chair, I'd like to propose a change to the recommendations so that recommendation 2.2 would read that Council approves changes to the council tax reduction scheme bands to reflect the impact of inflation and delegates the decision on those increases to the Director of Resources in consultation with the executive member for resources. So I'd like to move that change, but obviously happy to answer any questions with obviously Mr. Cooper here, and I'm happy then to move that recommendation as amended, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? No, again, I'm seeing none. So the recommendations, just to remind you, 2.1, the council amends the council tax discretionary policy to include the support provided to residents with a terminal illness with the wording detailed in paragraph 8.17. And then 2.2, as Councillor Ian Albert has outlined, with that addition on delegated decision. Ian has proposed. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Sean Nolan. Sean.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, any debate on that? All seems quite straightforward. Okay, we'll go straight to the vote then, please.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Item 10, this is where I banish Mel and Isabel from the chamber for our discussion on the electoral services scale of fees, but hopefully they'll be able to just walk out and then virtually walk straight back in again. This is Ian Cooper to present the item. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Required set of scale of fees for each year. The proposed changes to scale of fees for this year are set out in approximately paragraph 8.4 to 8.8 of the report. The main change being for those roles that would be paid below the national living wage, to make sure they are paid the national living wage, to make sure we comply with the law. There are a few other minor changes in those paragraphs, but that's the main one. And the revised fees are set out in the appendix.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments? No, then we are saying the recommendation is that council agree the scale of fees as set out in Appendix A. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Ian Albert. Ian?
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you. And a seconder? Val Bryant.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Val. Okay, any debate on that? No, then we'll go straight to the vote, please.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Can somebody just make sure Mel hasn't gone home? They're here. Thank you. Right, we're on item 11, interim review of polling district, polling places and polling stations, and welcome Shelley Abel to present them.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Following completion of the Community Governance Review in 2025 and changes from the CGR, the Council needed to conduct an interim polling district review. While the interim review focused on areas impacted by the CGR, namely Baldock, Ickleford and Royston, the Council also welcomed representations for any other areas. An interim review is required to follow the same process that is followed with a statutory polling district and polling places review and includes a consultation period. The consultation period ran between 14th of October until the 30th of November, just over 6 weeks, within which a total of 20 responses were received. Responses have been summarised at Appendix B of the report. It's worth noting that these reviews rely heavily on local knowledge. Therefore, anyone commenting on polling places was also asked to suggest an alternate venue for consideration. When considering the suitability of a polling place, consideration is given to accessibility, including parking and transport links. This is detailed at Appendix A of the report, which includes the final proposals and recommendations, including any justification. I wasn't proposing to present every amendment, as these are details within paragraph 8.6 of the report, as well as in detail in Appendix A. However, in summary, electors in the new polling district within the Lavender Grange ward of Ickleford will continue to vote at Ickleford Village Hall. Some polling districts have been merged, such as in Royston Heath and Royston Meridian, meaning one less polling station in both of these wards. And HWA2, Hitchin Walsworth, now incorporates dwellings 1 through 24 at Billing Place. As mentioned within the report, the Council has applied to MHCLG to participate in elections pilots. These pilots focus on accessibility. North Herts Council has applied to partake in early in-person voting and voting hubs, and members will be informed once we have confirmation as to whether these will be taking place. However, in preparation, voting hubs, if all parishes go to poll, will be located in Codicote, Nebworth, Kimpton and Royston. If the pilots do go ahead, will mean that any electorate for parish polls will be able to vote early in person on Saturday, 2nd of May and Sunday, 3rd of May at voting hubs. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Shelley. I think most members would have had an opportunity to comment on these. Any questions? Councillor Ralph Muntzer. Ralph.
Thank you very much. Just one question in terms of the early voting in the government trials. Is that purely for parish arrangements or is that for district and county elections as well in the future?
Thank you. So it's for polls that are due to take place in May this year. We are currently waiting on finalisation of the pilot order to come through. Melanie, I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that.
Yes, so whilst the order is being drafted, we expect that it will be any parish elections or if there was any district by-elections that took place in May.
John Claydon. John.
Thanks, Chair. Just a very quick clarification on the very small boundary change in Walsworth and Hitchin. Is that just to ensure that all the residences within Billing Place are all part the same? Is that the reason for that very small change?
So I believe it is Appendix E of the report will show the a close-up of the map in detail. The electors within Billing Place have to exit towards the south of the roads, and the closest polling place is not the one that they're currently within the polling district for. Sorry, bear with me. So the change is to ensure that electors are able to vote at the closest polling place. It'll only impact, off the top of my head, less than 30 electors.
Okay. Right. Any other questions or comments? No, not seeing any. So the recommendation is the council designates the polling districts and polling places as per the returning officer's proposals attached as Appendix A to the submitted report, effective as of 2nd of March. Can I have a proposer, please? Daniel Allen.
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Val Bright. Val.
Happy second, Chair.
Thank you. Any debate on this? I'm not seeing any, so we'll go straight to the vote, please.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. We're on to item 12, which is an appointment of the reserve independent person. In your report, Councillor Daniel Allen to present. Daniel.
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks approval to appoint a replacement reserve independent person. It will ensure the council's standards and processes can operate in accordance with legislative requirements if one or both independent persons and the reserve independent persons are unable to advise on a matter. We're seeking approval to appoint a replacement reserve independent person with effect from the 29th of January 2026 for a period of up to 4 years as per the recommendations below. For an initial term of 2 years and optional extension to a further 2 years following the resignation of our previous reserve IP, who we thank very much. We therefore recommend that council appoints Joel Rogers as the reserve independent person. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies. Paul, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was not in relation to this matter, just off the back of the last one. Noticed on the voting system, there's 2 Councillor Barnards. That is lovely for anybody that is familiar with Councillor Barnard, but just wanted to make sure that that wasn't the voting system was
just to clarify, yeah,
integrity.
we had a
It's okay.
technical issue before the meeting that is appearing twice on the list, but we have checked and the vote is only coming through once. We're on several votes. We've got Auditel booked in to come out to look at it, but yeah, there's nothing that we can do this evening, but we have made sure only 1 vote is being registered, and tonight all of the votes have accounted for 46 votes, no more.
Okay. So that's all right. In case of a tied vote, we are not ballot stuffing. Sorry, Daniel, that was interrupt. Right. So any questions for Daniel on the appointment of an independent person? Not seeing any. So the recommendations, 2.1, appoint Joel Rogers as reserve independent person, and 2.2 delegates to the monitoring officer in consultation with the chair and vice chair of Standards Committee the decision, if the current independent person decides within term to resign or unable to act no longer qualifies, to appoint one of the existing reserve independent persons as the independent person, and or to undertake any further recruitment as may be required. Daniel, you sponsoring? You proposing? Thank you. And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Sean Nolan. Sean.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any debate on that? Not seeing any, so we'll go to the vote, please.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Right, we're on to item 13, the adoption of updated advice to councillors on outside bodies. Councillor Vijay Pupalasingham to present the referral from the Standards Committee and report on this item. Vijay, to you.
Thanks, Chair. This is a review and update to the guidance to councillors who act on outside bodies. This was last updated in 2016. I'll refer to the guidance document itself in the course of my comments, so colleagues might find it helpful to have in front of them. A couple of headline points at the outset. Members should note that there was a late amendment to para 8.8 of the report. So opening references on each bullet point, example alluding to company or council, now read as organisation. I'll refer to that later on in my comments. As we see at para 7.1 of the report, gives us some definitions. Outside bodies are external organisations which have a separate governance structure to the council. As we see at para 8.4 of the report, there have been no fundamental changes to the approach adopted by the council, and the updates are limited to explanatory nature, tone and clarity of the document. And take the guidance broadly as read, but I do want to outline some of the key points it covers. As per para 8.4 of the report, the guidance lists the common type of organisations that we may be appointed to as councillors. So those encompass companies, charities, unincorporated associations. The role you hold and the risk corresponding depend very much on the type of organisation and the capacity in which you're appointed. So colleagues on outside organisations should very much have a look at the guidance to make themselves aware of that. At point 2 of the guidance, it highlights that the main types of roles councillors may hold respectively are directors, trustees, representatives or observers. Each of those roles carries a different legal duty and level of personal liability. Now, further on at para 8.7 and 8.8 and corresponding to point 6 of the guidance, it places particular emphasis on explaining conflicts of interest, and it gives some key examples as to where these conflicts could arise. And these were the changes I was alluding to at the outset. So it outlines that conflicts could arise where an organisation is seeking funding from the council, when organisation and the council are negotiating a contract with each other, organisation is selling, leasing land from the council. It makes clear our obligations to avoid conflicts of interest. Now, further, as alluded to in para 8.9 of the report, the guidance indicates steps members could take where there is a conflict or they think there may be a conflict, and this could encompass declarations, withdrawals from decision-making where appropriate, or seeking advice from the monitoring officer. In some instances, resignation from an outside body may be appropriate. Point 7 of the guidance reiterates that it's to be read in conjunction with the council's code of conduct. And finally, the guidance covers immunity, insurance and indemnities at point 8, but I'll leave both of those as read. The main takeaways, the guidance is a reminder to take our appointments to outside bodies seriously. If in doubt, get advice. I just want to say thank you to Natasha, Isabel and their teams for their work on the guidance, and to the members of Standards Committee as well for their input.
Thank you. Are there any questions on that? I must remind you, it's opportune that members should note that the annual outside organisations survey will be circulated shortly to appointed members and outside organisations. If you could ensure that this is completed for any of the bodies to which you have been appointed. Right, so the recommendation that council approve and adopt the updated guidance for councillors. Oh, Councillor Strong, Claire.
Thank you. I'm a little confused. Thank you to the councillor for taking a very fast step through all these changes and points of interest to this report. Can I just pick up on the one you really talked about, where in the councillor's code it talks about company? Is that a change now that has been made to the papers that we're looking at tonight?
As well, but mainly no, it's just alluding to the report paragraph point 8. Initially it said company as opposed to organisation, paragraph 8.8 of the report. And I assume also the guidance document would have to be updated as well to reflect that change as well.
You coming back on that? Or?
Feel a little bit confused.com over here. Perhaps the officer could just confirm that the word and a slight frustration from me that if we're going to have changes to documents that we're then trying to approve, I do like to see what I'm approving in black and white, you know, and if there is an update,
okay,
it would be nice to be circulated to me to know.
We do have the officer online, so Natasha, I think, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, and apologies it wasn't circulated in advance. It was a very late amendment, so it would have been this morning that it was circulated. It's not significant in its effect. It is just paragraph 8 of the 8.8 of the covering report that you have in front of you. the bullet points that are in that report, and I have it in front of me as well. Scroll back up to over the report. 8.8, the bottom of page 181. It's to open up the wording so that it's clear that the conflicts of interest aren't limited to only companies. Those conflicts can arise if you're on an outside body of any type of organisation, not just a company. So it's the bullet points at 8.8 where the wording under each of those bullet points says the company. It's been changed to open it up to an organisation.
Okay, thank you. I think that
Does that clarify the position?
I think that would clarify and satisfy it as well. Yes, the broadest possible terms. So the recommendation. Oh, Councillor Paul Ward. Paul.
Oh, that's fine, Chair. I was just going to give comfort to Councillor Strong that was the origination of that was only this week because we picked it up when we were reviewing it. So that's why the team didn't have time to republish the updates. But thank you for including it.
Thank you for clearing that up. Right. Claire.
Yes, with respect, we could have had an email if they knew about it this morning. With respect, we got an email late tonight about amendments to motions. I think we could have had an email that just warned us that what the changes were to a report. So I'm sorry, but I think that is common courtesy. And the only other question I always have on this is thus the indemnity for us that do sit on outside bodies, and that provided that we, again, just to clarify, provided we are acting very well being on these outside bodies, that we are covered.
Okay. Can we confirm that?
Yes. So members, when they're acting within their capacity, they are covered by the indemnity policy, which is accessible on the hub for members to view, and by all means ask any questions if there's anything specific that you are worried may not be covered within those duties.
Thank you, Isabel. Matt Barnes. Matt.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly, the clarification that we just heard to 8.8 in the report, I think also applies to section 6 in the guidance itself, which is on page 188. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it runs in parallel. So.
Okay. With apologies that we didn't get that out as fast as perhaps we might have done to you. The recommendation is that Council approve and adopt the updated guidance for councillors. VJ, are you proposing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ian Albert.
I'll be just second, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Any debate? I'm seeing none, so we'll go to the vote on that, please.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. We move on to item 14, which is the adoption of the Monitoring Officer Protocol. And VJ, it's back to you for that.
Actually popular this evening, Chair. Thanks so much. I'm happy to present the report and recommendation to Council for the adoption into the Constitution of the Monitoring Officer Protocol. The Monitoring Officer Protocol has been developed in support of ensuring good governance. Now, affecting governance, as we see in the summary, the exec summary to the report, has been heightened as a key factor of focus in recent years, as an increased number of authorities find themselves in difficulties. To this end, a commitment to integrity, transparency and ethical conduct in all public administration and decision-making processes has taken centre stage. Now, as per para 3.1 to 3.3 of the report, the protocol has been developed in support of and should be read in conjunction with the Golden Triangle document, which councillors have been provided as well. The Golden Triangle referring to the head of paid services, the chief exec, the section head of paid services chief exec, the section 151 chief finance officer and the monitoring officer. So this protocol, the monitoring officer protocol, sets out to explain the role and responsibilities of the monitoring officer. Its primary function is to promote and maintain high standards of legality governance. Now, as alluded to at para 8.1 of the report, the monitoring officer is a statutory role under the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. Their role is broadly outlined in sections 5 and 5A of that Act, but as a headline, the role is to advise the council on its legal responsibilities and constitutional framework and ensure compliance with all legal obligations. Now, as we see at para 8.2 of the report, a central obligation of the monitoring officer is to report when it appears a proposal, act or omission of the council is likely to give or would give rise to a contravention of any enactment or rule of law or give rise to maladministration. And it's that term maladministration that, when you look at the protocol, is known as reportable incidents for the purposes of the protocol, and it can include breaches of the Constitution, failures in statutory process, or conduct that undermines fair decision making. These are all outlined and explained in more detail in sections 2 and 3 of the protocol document. Now, as para 8.6 explains, the legal requirements pursuant to Section 5 of the Act sets out the arrangements in place to manage the risk of unlawfulness or maladministration by the council, and also sets out procedure by which the monitoring officer discharges the responsibility in consultation with the other statutory officers, and with particular reference to preparation of reports to members. The protocol, if you go through it, also makes clear that the monitoring officer's role is intended to be proactive. They're expected to be involved early in decision making, advising members and officers to help avoid legal issues arising in the first place. And you can see that in section 3 of the protocol document itself. As per para 8.8 and 8.9 of the report, where potential issues arise, the monitoring officer can seek to resolve them informally at first instance, should it be appropriate to do so. A formal statutory report is normally a last resort, used only where advice is ignored or seriousness of the issue demands it. As alluded to at outset and per para 11 of the report, the protocol outlines a close working relationship between the monitoring officer, the chief exec, and the section 151 officer in support of the objectives of the Golden Triangle. And as per para 8.14 of the report, we see the general overview, which sets out the joint collaborative responsibilities of the 3 officers. I'm not going to go through each of those in turn, but colleagues can see that, and it's again built upon in the Golden Triangle report. In summary, the monitoring officer, very important person, I'm sure we all know, but there's a shared responsibility of members and officers to engage early and constructively to ensure that the council operates to the highest standards. So again, thanks to Natasha, Isabel and their team for development of the protocol, and thanks to members of Standards Committee as well for their input.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions or comments? I'm seeing none, so the recommendations are to approve and adopt the monitoring officer protocol into the Constitution, and to 2.2 note the guidance attached at Appendix 2 titled Golden Triangle Governance Roles and Responsibilities. Vijay, I presume you're proposing that?
Yes.
And a seconder, please. Sean Nolan. Sean.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. Any debate? Councillor Ralph Muntzer. Ralph.
Thank you. I will just say briefly, could I thank all of the officers of whom have been involved in this? I think this is a really worthwhile document, certainly setting out more clearly the role of the monitoring officer. But also, could I put on record my thanks to Isabel, who has stepped into those shoes and really has put her mark on the role. And this is just one of the ways in which she's doing that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rolf, for that comment. Right. So we have a proposer and a seconder. There's no further debate. So can we go to the vote, please?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you very much. We're on to item 15, which is a whole bundle of things here. So let's carefully go through them. It's an appointment of substitute member, chair and vice chair of the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee, and noting the appointment of the deputy leader of the council, appointment of a new executive member for customer experience, and appointment to outside organisations. Mel to present.
Nothing further to add, Chair.
Oh, we like that. Right. Recommendations. Oh, are there any questions or comments before we go on to the recommendations? Councillor Claire Strong. Claire.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I have a couple of questions. I noted in the appendix on page 225 that the special interest for health is still vacant. Does that mean it's not a special interest? That's my first question. Hello, that's not me.
Okay.
I thought, I didn't know what was happening there. Sorry about that. Well, it was rather nice music. Anyway, moving on. And my other question, other points is I'd like to congratulate Councillor Sean Noland for being the deputy leader and an executive member. And with my arithmetic, that then made me realise that we now have 9 in the cabinet. And then I looked at the financial implications in 10, and it says no, there are no financial implications arising from this report. So that made me think, does that mean, Sean, you're not going to get a special responsibility allowance for your new role in cabinet, or are the other cabinet members going to take a little bit of what they were getting us and give so that we can even it up? Or is there actually a financial implication from these changes? And in which case, why is it not in the report? And that question is to the leader.
And so I will go straight to the leader, Val Bryant, for an answer.
First of all, can I answer Claire's first point about the health leader? It is on. It is on. Can you put it down, Michael? Is that better? That post is not being filled this year. I'd like to hand over to Anthony Roach to explain about or to Ian about the cabinet increase. Oh no, so to Melanie. To somebody, to an officer.
Sorry,
point of order, the leader.
Okay, there are no financial implications. Whilst there is an extra member on the Cabinet Committee, Councillor Val Bryant is not getting the SRA for the executive member role, and that is going to Councillor Noland. So there are no extra financial implications.
Okay, thank you. I now have Councillor Ralph Manser. Ralph?
Oh, thank you very much. My understanding, and I'm led to believe by Mr. Lovegrave, is that there is vacancy for a substitute on FAR from the Conservative group. I would like to appoint Councillor Barnard to that vacancy.
Okay, I'm sure we will certainly come to that. Councillor Val Bryant. Val.
Ralph has just reminded me about the Labour vacancy. I'd like to recommend that Councillor Daniel Wright Mason becomes member of FAR. What point do you want the chair and vice chair? Is that later?
Well, I think we're going to, if we've done with questions and comments, we'll now take these recommendations one at a time and you can fill them in. So recommendation 2.1 was that the remainder of the 25-26 civic year council appoints members to the following vacancies on Finance, Audit and Risk Committee. 1 member vacancy from the Labour group, Daniel Wright Mason, yes. And 1 substitute member. Do you have a substitute member?
No.
No. So that will stay vacant. So at the moment, we have the recommendation on 2.1 that the Daniel Wright Mason is appointed to FAR as the Labour and Cooperative Group member. And then we have a substitute member vacancy for the Conservatives and David Barnard. Fine. So we have David Barnard as the substitute member for the Conservatives. So can I have a proposer for these appointments, please? Councillor Val Bryant, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Nigel Mason. Thank you very much. As there are no other nominees, would you just care to agree that, everybody? Thank you very much. Right. Recommendation 2.2 that Councillor Vijay Pupalasingham be appointed as the Chair of the Finance Audit and Risk Committee for the remainder of this civic year. Can I have a proposer on that? Thank you, Val Bryant. And a seconder, please. I've got Amy Allen or Sean Nolan. So, Amy, you were first up, I think.
I guess I'm seconding. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further nominations? Not seeing any, so that's so Councillor Pupalasingham Vijay has been elected as Chair of the remainder of the Civic Year Finance Audit and Risk Committee. Well done. 2.3 that Councillor Sarah Lucas be appointed as the Vice Chair of FAR for the remainder of this civic year. Can I have a proposer for that, please? Val Bryant.
Happy to propose, Chair.
And a seconder. Emma Fernandez. Thank you, Emma. Right. Any further nominations? No. So by acclamation, Councillor Sarah Lucas has been elected as Vice Chair for the remainder of the civic year. Well done. Right, 2.4 that Council note the appointment of Councillor Sean Nolan as the Executive Member for Customer Experience and Deputy Leader for the remainder of the 25-26 civic year. Are we just noting that? We need a proposer and seconder for it.
Well, we do that.
Okay, so we'd like a proposer and a seconder. Proposer for that, Val Bryant, thank you.
Thank you.
And a seconder, Nigel Mason. Thank you very much indeed. Again, I'm not intending to put this to a formal vote. I'm just going to do that as everybody's agreed. Right. 2.5, Council note the appointment of Councillor Val Bryant as member representative and Councillor Sean Nolan as a reserve on the outside organisations Hearts Leaders Group and East of England Leaders Group. I think that's fairly traditional that leaders and deputy leaders should be on that, but can we just formally do that with a proposer? Ian Albert, thank you, and a seconder. Nigel, thank you very much. Again, I'm not intending to go to any great discussion on that because they're the leader and the deputy leader, quite frankly. Right. Thank you, everybody. Dealt with all that with alacrity. We now go to questions from members. There have been 2 questions submitted by members in accordance with Standing Orders 4.8.11. These are included in the supplementary document pack. So the first one is support for Compassionate Neighbours scheme and other schemes. Can I invite Councillor John Claydon to put the question to Councillor Daniel Allen? John.
Thank you, Chair. The sadly precarious financial position that Garden House Hospice Care finds itself in has recently led to the short notice closure of the North Herts Compassionate Neighbours scheme. This scheme provided very much needed support and companionship to many residents across our district, including to an elderly man in my ward who wrote to tell me how important it had been to him since the death of his wife. Could the executive member please update this council on the future of these schemes in North Herts, including any help the council is planning to provide?
Thank you, John. I'll invite Daniel Allen to reply. Daniel.
Thank you, Councillor Claydon, for raising this important issue. I completely understand how upsetting the closure of the Compassionate Neighbours scheme has been for residents who relied on it, and for the families who saw the difference that it made. It provided real companionship and reassurance for people who are often at their most vulnerable, and its loss not stated. Rather, this means the council does not or directly replace the service. Our officers have been in and will continue to engage with, understand the challenges and change have on local residents. With councillors and of support that may be available, including local voluntary organisation funding where appropriate. In a Hertfordshire County Council to organisations affected by this change. While we cannot step in as North Herts County, we do remain commoners and community organisations to help ensure residents are supported within our powers and available resources. Thank you.
Thanks.
I a scheme that's run by an external organisation, Hertfordshire organisations. Potentially, I mean, these schemes are impacted volunteers. Some of those volunteers may be willing in some form if they have the support. I'd like to know whether there's any mechanism, and I take the point that organisations may need to be involved as well, that this council could do to have people are able to have access to similar lifeline for those who have been depending on.
Daniel?
Thank you. We would encourage any to speak with our communities team to help them. I cannot, because I don't know what's being asked of us, to blank check, but I am going to say sure that this really vital service does continue.
Much, yes, very vital. The second question, can I invite Sam Donna Wright, please?
The late Iron Age British town at Baldock on the at-risk register by that the site has some real major problems. High vulnerability, and historic England has also action or strategy in sight of national importance. Is the administration doing to protect this nationally important?
Thank you, Sam. Donna Wright to respond.
What have we ever done? Well, this historic settlement 2016, much of the settlement is beneath and it has been farmed for many years, and for the Growing Baldock project by council in June 2025. And this says that Woolsfield will provide a new public open, and this will focus on natural grass. So the lower intensity will reduce the pressure. An outline planning application, England's response to the application, and this says impacts and appropriate future would likely result in the site risk register.
Thanks, Donna. A follow-up, Sam?
Yeah, Historic England also states that local planning authorities should ensure the ability to assess heritage assets within the local heritage lists. And just as a bit of information, heritage lists, but they've only been updated well, the last time they were updated was it really isn't adequate, and they don't cover these local heritage lists. The officer's delegated authority to add sites or to seek rapid find procedure to add sites to the list, and how do members of the public and conclusion on those lists?
You to respond.
I don't know what that check with officers. Begun discussions with Urban and Civic of the site as part of the plan, and the master plan, and an indication from Historic reversion to grassland will provide. That's the I'll have to get back Councillor Collins on.
Yeah, take this off and so that you've got a response. Much. Okay, we're item 17, notice of motions. In accordance with Standing Order 4.8.1 Constitution, the debate on motions is limited to 30, following which the vote will be taken. This will include any amendments proposed to the motions. Motions will be taken with a member of the largest of the second largest opposition and a member of the administration going last. This will be rotated until all points of limit is reached, whichever is the first motion. I know there are one or two sort of not interest, but Claire has already said about us in this, and I think both will stay for the debate, dissipate. Is that okay? Okay, I've got a couple of other people wishing to speak. Martin Prescott.
While I have some sympathy for the planning committee, I'm a little concerned being part of the debate that's potentially be perceived either being in favour or against Belt. And as such, I think I would rather not be conslouncing. So just want to make that clear.
Thank you, Martin. I would never accuse him at all.
Question to you, Chair, about the timing to reply. And are they included in the...
I'm getting a shake of the head on the right. It doesn't...
Right to reply comes at the end of the 30 minutes. Okay, but it won't include...
Because it's...
Will it? So the seconder has to speak as... We haven't really done...
No, well, it's...
I just don't want to lose my right to speak, that's all.
Would never deny you your right to speak, Ruth.
Yeah.
Thank you. 3 members of the planning committee, maybe 4 members. I'm concerned that if I stay in this, if I don't say anything, it could be used in the future against me. And I feel the same. Could we have clarification on this, please?
Thanks.
This relates to planning policy at a rather high, and members, they are entitled to this motion on full council. And I did send a reminder to those on the planning control, do determine individual plans, they always do, with an open mind, and on the merits of each in accordance with planning law. It doesn't in itself prevent taking part or not to express views that could have predetermination if an application loosely related is before the control committee. So if you want to take a belt, but with any planning control committee, go there and demonstrate that you're there with a no determined.
Okay. Before I come to Louise,
Well, I thoroughly appreciate, and I will also not be partaking in this.
absolutely fine. I think it's in.
It's I've always previously opted simply because I work for a local estate agent, and it's been
Right. Thank you, everybody, for that. I'll now come to Louise Peace.
Wow, I'm successfully. Right, thanks, Chair. Introduced a new concept to planning law. Grey belt, as its name suggested, such as disused petrol stations, or as a concept, it sounded a really reason we so desperately need. Grey belt has ceased to be about disused petrol parks. It is now effectively any. Of course, policies to protect habitat and to ensure that sites are sustainable. However, the requirement for local authorities to demonstrate also introduced in 2020 for greenfield habitat in favour of development significantly raises. The reality of grey, when a resident dropped a leaflet, a proposal for 100 homes on a resident had written huge in several exclamation marks. The resident was right. Neighbourhood plan that was voted in with over 90% in favour, even set to grow by 50%. My residents deserve readily of NHS services, good public isn't already at capacity. The rise of grey belt sites means we have less developments on the edge of village locations using roads that are already at standstill. Although there is a requirement for 50% of grey belt sites, the requirements be called affordable, often local young people looking for a first home. Are to be YIMBYs and not NIMBYs in fields. We should build the homes in our local. We should build homes that are on brownfield sites. Developer select a brownfield site so readily available for a speculative. The consultation PF open until the 10th of March. Our say on greenbelt policy on grey belt policy in North Herts. Some positive amendments here that I hold. For example, chalk streams. But if you agree that North, rather than leaving it to speculative development, you to support this motion.
Thank you very much.
The motion and reserve my right to speak.
Oh, the screen lights are first. Caroline.
Chair and good evening, colleagues. I would like to start by thanking Peace for bringing this motion to full council and highlighting the risk to the green belt in our district. In my ward, Gravely St Hippolyte, significant reduction in green belt and of urban sprawl as and Stevenage become connected. The grey belt concept, a healthy and robust strategy and approach. We need improved instances and safe, sustainable travel. People in cars. A recent that more than 1,103 hectares of Herts is under threat of development, being viewed as grey belt. This includes 61 planning applications proposing 9,955 dwellings, 8 farms, 2 data centres in Bess, and 1 other commercial. Of these, 13 applications have entered either by the local, the third belt countryside, and include 3 solar farms and an area around the site 84 football fields. Hence the need for housing and protecting our, and I welcome the support of the brown and true grey belt sites for and delivering genuinely affordable. And I thank all those councillors who support this comment on the consultation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
By saying that I do genuine intentions behind this motion, which I have. The introduction of the new has certainly created challenge past year. Our response to the MPPF consultation. We know that large-scale village settings can be difficult. Infrastructure isn't equipped to support it. Being cautious about directing areas without fully considering, and of course, local character and hugely important. However, mentioned in point 2 of the motion are just 2, and in the end, could actually make things worse. Especially for young people who. Bear in mind, we're already heavily constrained by Greenbelt. In Greybelt 2, it will make it impossible to meet the housing target expected to meet. What happens when a council can't demonstrate a requirement? It doesn't see hands more power to speculative. That is the last thing that any of us suggests, bringing villages into Greenbelt to provide stronger protection. But this can cut both ways. Stricter greenbelt interpretation end up blocking the kind of modest growth we actually need. Growth that protects local shops and helps deliver local affordable housing. Historically, the greenbelt was to prevent the sprawl of large urban areas, not to lock villages. We do have to think most all land around villages we expect new homes to go. Because if we don't propose solutions, the planning is for us and they won't be tailored to local needs. We need to use our voice to push for better funding for infrastructure, social housing and investment, not for position system, and won't result in the homes stand and support the sentiment behind the motion. And I agree with much of its diagnosis it puts forward. We must protect special, but we must also be real. We owe it to our residents, people, to ensure that we have a planning approach that protects our countryside and meets local housing needs.
Thank you.
Not cutting off both.
Thank you very much. I should have gone to a Conservative because the protocol tells me to go in groups first. So
I need to apologise to me, Chair. Support the motion by Louise, unlike others, is suffering from overdue houses being built in recent times and a further 350 plus in plan or pre-application stage. Ilford is a small community village. I attended a meeting with Ang concerning the antiquated and which even then caused raw sewage into residents' gardens and into raised baths and toilets. Improvements have been made since then or are proposed. Ickleford cannot cope. Transport and road infrastructure is already central beds in 2 direct cars on our to and through Hitchin is untenable. The proposal to mean that Hitchin and Ickleford will coalesce. That was never the intention of Greybelt. Greybelt is very subject and received agreement that whether it be water, sewage and transport is essential before development.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll schedule of things now. So we go to a Lib Dem Brown.
For it. Thank you, Chair. Not all greenbelt is equal. I think we can. There is a disused garage, landing, an old car park, and closed. It's not equal to green, and in that sense, building on those that is not something that I would object to. It would make sense. However, this policy goes much. It makes those more developing greenfield sites within, and we have had an uptick of speculative applications since the change the rules in December 24 by the Labour government. I'm actually disappointed with our cabinet member knowledge. We need more homes. No, none of us. We need affordable home district, but they've got to be in the sustainable locations with the right infrastructure. And we also need a lot of greens. We recognise how in well-being. So different because we don't have a problem with, I believe, 3 million planning permissions in actually building out the permissions they have. So I think it would be much better gave powers to councils to ensure are actually developed to speculate on sites that have not been allocated. This policy drives us through the original intention of the change, which was to make it easier to build homes at land in the Greenbelt. In developers carte blanche to concrete around villages when many are undeveloped. This and undermines one of the main purposes of the belt, which is to prevent urbans must be in the right places at the right price.
Thank you very much. And you can now go in the right. Conservative member. The next one I've got there is Joe Graziano.
Thank you, Louise, for bringing this. We had a large solar farm, in fact, project application approved last year, following it being rejected by the Council Land. It was appealed by the developer. It's 200-page report. It was okay. And the economic benefit this would bring. This was prior to the NPPF. So we've got airport expansion coming, 100 homes in Cockenhoe, 50 megawatt solar farm in Wandon End, allowing or protecting the Greenbelt to be protected for all. The inspectorate has, the key issue was, and still is, land, agricultural grade, offering farming security, uncertain world. And this was obviously occupied by industry. I am very weary and concerned, saw firsthand from the inspectorate, is calling everything practically grey. And I'm really concerned that this large brush is being used to build, race from Donald Trump, all act respectfully when grey. I would be in favour of this. Thank you.
To a Labour member, now you're right, Mason.
I also want to start by saying that I respect the intent behind it. In my own ward, we are seeing what I believe is the largest development in North Hertfordshire so far this century. So I have real sympathy with member concerns about affordable housing, and ensuring developers. My part company with this motion is not on its the approach it promotes would be for a district like that would have on housing delivery. Limit grey belt development largely to previous, which may sound appealing, but the reality is that we simply do not have the land supply that this. We have almost no or petrol stations. And while this national figure is about 1.4 million homes, in North Hertfordshire, we have had planning permission for less than 300 laps since 2007. The impact of a policy this rigid will be to rule it to meet the scale of the housing need. In a constrained authority like increases appeal risk and weakens our ability to structure and affordable housing. To be clear about what the grey belt policy, it does not abolish the green belt or to build. It recognises that not all about land performs the same strategic function to the usual planning tests. Bring our track record. Since this count in North Hertfordshire, including in places like it provided shelter for thousands who have called those communities home. It is not abstract here, it is generations of people. Bothers me in discussions like this is that there always seems to be one side left out, and that is the people who may want to move into these homes. More than 2,000 households on our housing households in temporary accommodation at any. And sometimes I wonder, equally, there are tens of thousands of the current and future generation rent in this motion, but do the maths and realize fewer deliverable sites does not meet and more instability. So the intent behind this motion, I cannot support a rigid for our local context, risks making housing delivery harder rather than easier. But I will be opposing the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Long ago that Walsworth considered itself as right. We're going to a Lib Dem, Steve Jarvis.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's government has decided to. I think it's regrettable that they've fallen line that the way to improve developers more planning permissions. And we all know that the rate of development, the rate at which developers can sell at the market want to make. However, about how if this were passed, it would reduce the ability of the council to control development. And in fact, this is true, but as we're not talking here on the development that's planned, on the areas that might have been removed as part of the local, was done in the last local plan, development that was necessary in what is this? What this is about, successful speculative piece, almost any piece of green layer that you choose. That isn't going to result in them building more they can sell. It's just giving developers. So that this motion, and assuming they do it, that we would be in a worse position to deliver housing or a worse control where that housing locate is North Hertfordshire is absolutely wrong motion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't think that it is the introduction of the concept of grey belt absolutely catastrophic on rural communities right across North Hertfordshire. It has unleashed a wave of speculative developments in communities across the district, including in those that I represent in Codicot, St Hippolytes and the Wyman Lees. Unexpected, it wasn't unanticipated. We're having a discussion and a December in 2024 when the government amendments to the PPF, where we highlighted that this was likely to happen. A few years down the line, it is exactly has come to truth, point which has been raised by Councillor Wright Mason. What this does, the grey belt, is it increases, it makes it far more difficult for stakeholders to assess the impact structure. Not least does it cumulative impact on local infrastructure. Schools, our GP surgeries test properly in the way in which local plan. But I thank Councillor Peace for bringing forward this motion, because it isn't something of which it is to those in Ilkleford, people and communities. And I joined her, Councillor Patmore and our developer, of whom came to discuss and put forward their proposal, shall we say, and meeting that the people of Ilkleford concerned about infrastructure with these proposed homes. Councillor Barnard, Shadow Cabinet Member for Education within the Education Directorate, to make sure that they're in our schools should this development go ahead. But we need to be building this, as Councillor Brown said, that is countryside in North Herts. It is about making government planning policy. We are economic growth in areas of which have, such as the Midlands and the Nottingham Moor homes, not necessarily, certainly not in villages in rural communities of Hertfordshire.
Thank you. Two more, and that's just as well, because I was wanting to.
Thank you, Chair. We already have a local plan, and it's sound because it housing growth needs that have been identified, and we spent years wrangling about it. I'm very familiar with that. I actually accept that it means that the strategic sites will get built on, as my colleagues have said earlier on. I believe that does not mean that we need to go further and should be supporting it. For Nebworth and other villages in our district, I believe the grey belt is a serious threat. Just to give you a quote from this, of course, agreed as part of the overall. Nebworth aims to be vibrant and inclusive community, a great place to live that is distinct neighbouring community. That we need to ensure that Nebworth maintains rural character. That use of the grey belt, very symbols of local neighbourhood plans in Nebworth, where villages get. That's why I strongly support a motion, and particularly points 2 regarding the protection for villages that it will give, like Nebworth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, last but not least, Sam.
I'm hearing the debate going here, and it's clear to me that on half with the motion itself, what I'm hearing is comments and logic and what all of our residents that we represent countryside, but in the towns as well, have been voicing quite loudly and quite strongly the effect of kitchen, and it's caused absolute chaos in the villages as well. And that's one tiny little change. Yet we're going to build a huge amount more houses in that area, and on top of that, the other side of the room, the administration side, favour making it easier for developers to of the the mythical affordable houses that aren't really affordable. They're building big mansions. Just look at some of the sites that are being developed now. Mansions, these aren't little tiny full sites, and you're just going to make it easier. Lack of concern on the countryside, because it's not just green space to go and weekend and go on a nice little ramble. It is a place to visit and enjoy. So the source of our food. It's also the people live and work. We can concrete over that, and it doesn't matter. But you need to think about the implications. Somebody mentioned chalk's really important, but if you start thinking about some of the other briefs, very room, the water supply is pretty precarious. Water in this area. You start concrete over green fields. Where's that water running off to? You're going to started to see that already. It's not just the weather. It's more and more built in equals less runoff into valleys. Places like what the Wymondley, Little Wymondley, which hasn't had floods of late, would see serious problems again. And we saw some earlier in the winter. We're going to start seeing more and more problems, like a vague mention of infrastructure, schools, doctors' surgeries, proper transport. None of that is coming from the other side. So I ask those on the other side of the room who are probably being whipped not to support this motion to think about what you're doing and think about the future of North Hertfordshire, because I think right now is destroying the countryside, creating a developers charter, and they're not at North Hertfordshire and the residents here.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to give order. Councillor Mason.
Counts being likely to flourish around the room as ever, the not being whipped at all. So perhaps Councillor Collins can withdraw that comment.
If we take that to any comment that was made, I have reply for Louise.
Well, I just wanted to make 3 quick points. I was going to say that we were all on the same page, but we were until about 30 seconds ago by the sound, and that we were all agreed that sentiment, both from people who'd be voting against the motion and those who are voting for the motion. We're all agreed we need to control. I also take the point about villages not standing in aspect, and I love that. But I would just point out that Ickleford will want all of our local plan sites, and so we are by no means standing in aspic. So is there to stop urban sprawl? Do anything to stop Ickleford merging? And the final point I'd like to is, I'm a member of Planning Control. I'd like to thank all of our hardworking planning officers who keep the changes to planning law and of course, as a member of Planning, make our decisions based on the law we.
Thank you very much. We will now go to the voter. Can we vote those in favour of that motion?
Carried.
Thank you very much indeed. Sorry. Well, I was going to suggest we take a 10-minute break as we're at so refresh and come back. Okay, I think we're items left, and on this is so to move the motion, Ralph.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And communities that I represent frequently tell me of their experiences of unreliable and frequent bus services. Communities that I represent have a limit at all during the evenings or the weekend. And within the Southern Rural District have seen services withdrawn. Most notably, the 101 was previously operated by Arriva, absolute lifeline to people right across North Hertfordshire services to go about their daily life, go into the town centre to go and get their weekly, to go to the GP surgery or the hospital, or to go and get an education at college. And what we need to be doing is making the reliability and the free bus services. And that is what in the southern rural community right across the district that do not feel this council delivers for them. As far pay their ever-increasing council tax bill. And what have they got for it? Well, they've got is collected once every 3 weeks. Their communities are facing open policies, and what we should be driving to deliver more for those rurals who feel left behind this council. I will welcome £160,000 in Hertfordshire and expand the southern rural areas of which is already being is an absolutely fantastic project we should be going towards. And this week, and by no partnership working with the county council in Decorum, where they've been established since 2020, landed to cover the Maylands area, and that borough council through the section by the council there. That's what we should hear in North Hertfordshire. This council should be testing with officers and to expand this scheme to deliver more, sure that they are connected with our. And with just respect, have been submitted. I do wish to Democrat amendment, or it's certain, and there's things that I would like to rather this amendment the motion. Although I would like to second clause of the motion it ends financial support, including from contributions that this council could offer in order to deliver.
Thank you. Well, we've got to. So, the Liberal Democrat happy for that to fall.
Liberal Democrats, amendments will become Ralph's.
Yes, indeed.
If anyone else wants to do then
we ask. Is there any debate or sorry? One. Thank you very much, Joe. Always a pleasure. Right. So the substantive incorporated with that. Any debate or any amendment coming in? Okay, I've got VJ Poop.
Thanks, Chair. This is point that to down his motion, having read the now version from the Liberal Democrats, considering that we're putting forward actual concrete action as opposed to vague assurance. That said, I am sympathetic to both the motion and the amended. I do recognise this being in the crucial purposes of bus service and the problems they cause. A service like Herts Links being expanded in would be helpful, with the acceptance of all withdraw our proposed amendments.
Okay, and I thank you for that. Ruth Brown.
So I welcome this, happy to support it, doing already. The Cabinet Member for Environment, Transport and we are proposing more buses in Hertfordshire, 2 of which will be in the new budget. We're also doing some franchising feasibility, what with money allocated happens with that pilot looking to expand buses into more rural areas, and it's certainly in every village in Hertfordshire should be a local town via public transport to support the motion. Councillor Munster for.
Thank you, Chair. Supporting this motion, which for those who've been realised, it won't come as a huge surprise. Councillor Munster this already. I have to correct Councillor Munster's original motion, something like it's just a point of fact to put on the record. The Herts Links was actually invented by Herts County Council. It was in possession at the time, which was called North Council. And the transport officer at the time, who to the then executive member for transport, which was me. and idea of a demand responsive transport system. And I said, they're great, they're wonderful, but go ahead, spend as much time as you like, because I think it's a wonderful scheme if it'll ever work. I asked for an update about, yep, it's all going ahead, got the funding from County Council Hearts Links, and we're going to have this up and running. Hearts Links scheme, which is fantastic. We should, as a council, be taking credit for. Our colleagues from the County Council, this in Stevenage and Hertford, we should be proud of. And when it was first proposed, the idea was that if the funding became available, it would be expanded to the south of Hitchin, is down to Nebworth and all of that area, and out all the way up to Luton. And I think that's aspire to. So this is why I fully support a couple of county councillors who try not to.
Thanks for this. And good for us, is what Willoughby. Alistair.
Thanks. Would like to echo quite a lot of what was said. I think it is something that I sit on the Environment Transport with Councillor Browson for Environment Transport Growth, and I thought about this quite a lot. Brought in. I am very supportive of the expansion of Herts. It is fantastic. It's a sticking plaster on the actual issue is that we don't have a throughout our rural community. At the moment, also a county councillor, there is currently a feasibility study happening to happen in North Herts, East Herts, Hertfordshire County Council, Lotley. So while I'm supporting, it is really important that what is not just an but a regular bus service across to start off with, and then across the whole county that actually serves those regularly, not just a few vehicles going out a small number of people, but to actually connect our communities. So I will support. We need to go a lot further for public transport.
Would that there was the money. Right, Ian Albert. Ian.
Just now work my way through what the amended version is, and I think what's welcome actually here is that there's clearly now a deal of unanimity the room, and that we don't get some contributions like council in the last debate, which was deeply unhelpful. But in building on it, and I think it's Councillor Munster's amendment at the propose for the link service, and I'm sure the Conservative group will be writing that amendment as we speak, and we'll look forward to seeing that. It's also seen, and I think what's been really helpful to with Councillor Zukovsky, who's the executive, also the links manager for Hertfordshire. Actually, it's open, I think, to see how we can work with links to inform. One of the big gaps that touched on was in Great Ashby. With the link, look at doing a quick 2 weeks of find links bus stop Great Ashby with a view to rolling that out very quickly for the residents of. So I think there are improvements that the existing service wishes. But as Councillor Willoughby has said, really the crux and the critical part, which obviously is something that wasn't really touched upon motion. This issue of franchising to deliver services for our communities. This is a fantastic service, and actually many people to get to places not otherwise been able to do so. Would we only be able to have buses, not just in our town, right across our district? This is what is the prize that we're really aiming for here. And I think hopefully we can all get behind that work. And I hope that today we unanimously support this motion.
Ian, and finally, Matt. Oh, no, not finally.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to agree with what Councillor Willoughby said about rural bus services, important, and also with Councillor Albert, that consensus around this in the room. I also just popular service. I know a lot of people use it, get into Royston and around Royston too. It's really good because the other point, but there are already some stops in Great Wymondley and in Cal. So it is already there, and we should be promoting that as much as possible. But obviously, certainly in support of expanding it into the is not currently served. Wakey.
Kel.
Thank you. So I'm very much in favour the idea of extended bus services, both the on-call and the regular bus service. I'm just looking at what I'm for this, and I just find it a bit. I'm going to be asked to write to the leader of the council. To the executive member for Environment Transport, Hertfordshire County Council, and presumably as deputy. When we've got our county councillors here, conversation at county, is it that North Herts doesn't get a shout in council we write? Is that why it has actually got some success? I'm just concerned about that relationship. the letter, and I will add to the letter and things we've heard today about Great Ashby and so on. It's just that a number of that committee actually in today. That was my concern. If it's that decision.
I understand what
Yes.
you're saying, but I'm sure it adds if we've debated it here and our leader put some emphasis on it. Nigel, you have.
I'm genuinely delighted on this matter. Ring on buses, if you like, and public transport. We always have the bit at the beginning of our meetings when we commit emergency and whatever, but quite often we necessarily vote for things that are going to actually make a difference. And we do need to massively improve public transport, and that means buses. So I'm particularly delighted. Conservatives, your former leader Margaret Thatcher once said, was it, anyone over the age of 30 who travelled on themselves a failure? So I'm really, really glad to see the Conservative, and that we can agree on this. And there's been a few attempts to claim credit for this. So on this, in the 2025 spending review, the government confirmed more than one for buses in England and I think that included a multi-authorities, and that Hert's about 6.5 million a year for the years. And I really welcome the opportunity to, with interest, given how many county councillors we've got in the room, is to see what county council can do with that money for buses from the government. So, and I mean that genuinely, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I got Ralph back for sort of right of reply, I suppose.
Pleasantly surprised, because this is only times of where I think one of the Conservative group is actually going to be the support. So thank you very much. And
it did have to be amended, though.
Small steps. But can I thank colleagues across the chamber for their support and for the points of which they've raised. Our ambition for buses, she's right across the district, are far more connected. Clearly, we all share. I'm very happy some clarification to Councillor Bryant as to what I have included within this motion, the clause to ask her to write to the leader, because whilst there are, including the leader of the county council, acting in our capacities as district councillors tonight, and it is important that we get on the record, county council, this council's support is absolutely crucial to explore for the communities of which this authority represents. I very much hope that the response will be a positive one, and I very much look forward to hearing about the discussion engagement the officers with colleagues, their officers at Hertfordshire County Council. But thank you very much for supporting this.
We'll go to the vote on this. Is everybody voting for, now that we've amended it? Good, thank you, because I was dreading that all out. Right, so if you could vote.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Very good, thank you very much indeed. And we're on to the final motion, which is action on, again, I'm coming to Ralph Munster. Ralph.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have a feeling this one isn't going to be necessarily. Fly tipping is certainly, it costs this authority and private landowners millions in order to clean up illegally disposal. That we are taking tough action is a scourge on our society, and isn't necessarily focused on when I'm out and about in my ward and to people. One of the most frequent issues on the doorstep is very much tipping, of which has been left down the lane. There is also an issues as well, and what fly tipping does is it manage decline and decay, visible example of that, and taking the appropriate action. What this motion seeks to do is it seeks to strengthen this council's tackling this scourge through increasing the fixed penalty notice of which is issued to whom admitted fly tipping £1,000. That was a measure of which was introduced under the previous unfortunately something that hasn't yet been adopted, order of which will be adopted by this council. It's about ensuring the fantastic work that our officers on the ground from our environmental crime team ensure that the members of the public are aware of what they should be looking out for when those of particularly house, but also how members of the public are able to report instances of fly tipping to the council to identify those offenders, hear prosecutions, and also of course cleared away as soon as possible. A policy of naming those of fly tipping in council, thing of which is very across the country and including at Hertfordshire County, although I do note that seek to remove this. Why? Otherwise, I'm very happy to open the debate, commend this motion to the chamber to securing tougher action on fly.
Thank you very much. Do we have a council?
Yes, will do.
Seconded by Councillor Muir. I'm thinking we've got some amendments coming. Count
debate on this.
Okay, well, when we get to it, I'll come to you. Amendments? Mick Debenham. Mick.
Cheers, Gabe. I agree with the sentiment behind the and yes, fly tipping is a ski. The resolutions behind it that I for bullet point 1, I wished to the council uses its Protection Act of 1990 to issue notices for minor fly tipping offences. 23 amendment increasing the maximum funds, higher penalties will be applied. Bullet point 2, I like. And for bullet point 3, if I may indulge you, Chair, I would like to incorporate Councillor's amendment as part of my amendment, if that's with you and with Councillor Tyson. So
the amendment then will not go voted. So we'll just have the one amendment which incorporates. We're doing a lot of amending tonight. Right. So the amendment, your amendment, VJ. Yeah.
I can share and reserve my rights.
If there are a lot of people wishing to speak, don't leave it too long before you speak, because the right to ride of the 30 minutes only goes to the proposed. Right. So debate the amendment. Councillor Sean Nolan.
Currently stated to remove about adopting a policy to name offenders for currently the council does name via the website and through some of the press release after 3 months, essentially suitable amount of time to have on the website and therefore searchable. I think the council therefore does help a decent extent and therefore amended motion as it is. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Michael Muir.
Thank you, Chair. A comment about fly tipping, about £400, but I believe this council already have the authority to find uplands. So I like to know we are not finding these £1,000, because if that's reported on our website, these fines of £1,000 by certain people, I think a lot of this.
I think that we're going to be suggesting that we do as of by this resolution. Tom Tyson.
Yeah, I just want to say, for the sake of clarity, the amendment that was adopted, Mick over there with to the resolutions, one's got all the different documents open in front. That resolution, which now reads, the council continue to work with the police to tackle the crime by unauthorised commercial operators, using all serious offenders. The reason that I wanted that of the naming and shaming clause that was previously was to differentiate a little the different kinds of occur in this whole sort of sphere. For whatever reason, not perhaps ask somebody or pay somebody to get rid of their rubbish for them, and it turns out that they're not licensed and they just go off and dump it. There's a difference between the people that trap through lack of awareness ever and people who for profit. To be a distinction made there. Blanket policy that basically has a kind of sanctimonious approach to everybody who falls into this trap, hiring somebody and inadvertently dumped somewhere where it shouldn't be and traced back to them. So that's the reason for the amendment, and I hope that clarifies that.
Thank you very much. From the outset that I think which has been proposed, I support the First Amendment, making sure that doing with specific reference to which is governing this. What Tyson just said about and the importance to distinguish the stake and haven't intelligence as opposed to those of whom are malicious. I completely agree with you. What to ensure that those individuals whom are and found guilty by are the most serious offenders and waste are the ones of whom are being those individuals of whom an error of judgment and diligence are more likely, at least my understanding, is to be issued with a fixed penalty notice by that individual, then or potentially to prosecution. But
Sir Willoughby, Alistair.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to say I'm fully in support, but no illusion that this is going to cease fly tipping overnight. It's really important to remember that as long as it is profitable, and Tyson's point, it is exactly offer these services, not legitimate necessarily, or even some who still with fly tipping for profit will not stop. It's not going to happen. So I think we need to be really. It is important. Tom's that with our partners, with the police, to do more. But I don't think that. Thank you for Councillor Noden for pointing out people's names do go up, but there are caught out who realise all the requirements around this, and perhaps ignorance isn't an excuse, but they very cheaply need to clear their gardens of a loan. Who hire someone, they take all that off. Not really fair. The three don't think that we should be pushing to the point where we are actually have made a simple mistake, but absolutely believe that we need to work with our partners on our rural communities.
Okay, thank you. David Barnard, Chair.
Very often expensive to fly tip than to hire a skip. Our fixed penalty, fair enough, holders who inadvertently ask for a licence and therefore become victims of the ones who are actually prosecuted, fined in the end. Of Luton's rural areas and North suffers immensely from this criminal scourge. Our environmental enforcement officer scoundrel fill our lanes with it. Cannabis residue cleared at North Herts District Council's expense. Attended the courts, photographed and published, and this is the sort of publicity that actually of what is happening and what the consequence. Buses or other advertising media might be tempted to break the law. Somebody would then be able to come alongside, realise, of the situation, make them aware. If they don't ask for a licence at the door, and then it's their problem. They're the ones who. Thank you.
Amy Allen. Amy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm absolutely delighted. Motion has actually already been completed. They're wonderful. Let's Scrap Fly Tipping campsite. It details, actually printed on recycled paper and encouraged to recycle it after use. The scrap code is, and I am going to email it to you so you can see it for information that's being presented. But you're well up for having it campaigned, even to let everyone know that that's there. Thank you.
Sam Collins.
I've got a couple of suggestions. I don't want to amend a motion or anything because it seems a bit, but I think there's a couple of things that we need. Some of the things that go on that cause the council, and it's not the first time I've spoken about, I want to talk about the victims of fly deception, that if you're driving along the road in your trash bag or your McDonald's rubbish, it's a victimless crime. It's not. That you look in the bushes alongside all of it in our area, they're filthy. It's awful. And they are maybe moving house or doing some someone will come and clear it up, won't they? The council will just. But it's not, because then it's incredibly important that we do raise for people who are found to be fly tipping, particularly rotting chicken on the lane. There's another group that I think we haven't discussed about who are victim, and doesn't come up enough, and in contact. And he's a farmer. He's to the south of our district, not in the district but he's a senior figure in the heart. Points out why is your discussions with the NFU about, because our members, farmers in North Herts, having to clear up fly tips at their own expense. Because there is for farmers to be able to deal with fly tipping with the councils, the county and district council request that we actually, as a fly tipping with the NFU and local farm owners, and also other local landowners who are also having to pay the urge of this clear up. And then the final one I've made before, and I think it would be quite easy, to cleaning out your rubbish at home, use the council's very good bulky this. You wanted to use a private waste. Everybody sort of, you've got to ask for a license. No, and all of these adverts just say fully light. Really know what that means. It was easy for us as a local authority to have a list of all of the licensed waste removal company on the website, so people didn't have to. Is that a proper up-to-date license, or do we just have a look? Last time I looked, I could a very good list of local companies, and I think it'd be a very safe and would help people resolve this very quickly.
Thank you very much, Joe Graziano. Joe.
Where obviously in Kings Walden we've got an issue with some members making comments, fly tipping being a simple accident. Sorry, that's just not acceptable. Cost £400. The offenders know exactly what they do. I should know this in Kings Walden. Fly tipping is rampant. It occurs near. We are the ones put there the sweets. That wasn't put there by error. It was put there because they don't pay. So let me be clear about that, or accident. I didn't want dirty and downright disgusting. They know the £400 fine in the face. We should be pushing harder at the motion for £1,000. We should be pushing this motion harder about me going in. I still question that that's actually being used and going after these criminals. So yes, fly tipping.
Thank you very much. I was just going to say I'm finally Ruth Brown and somebody else. Brown first.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's much new in this. Putting up the fine to the maximum. A few years ago, that my former managed to get this allowed at the time, and then since then has put it up again. So I think this council's playing catch up with the charging the maximum. Absolutely support that. And the other, I want to make a couple of other points. So I think in addition to promoting this code, we should be promoting our mentioned by Councillor Collins, well as we might on our bulky waste collection. And I think side promoting the scrap code. The other thing I just wanted to say is enough to check the waste carrier license to get a waste transfer note or a formal. There's actually, it's surprisingly easy license, and it doesn't actually guarantee that it's going to be legally disposed of. So ago, when I was deputy, explained the scrap code, and I think we need to keep repeating it so we all have a responsibility to do that. Time to time on our local reporting page, someone's for recommendation to dispose. Well, I always take that opportunity to check that they have, because otherwise you could be the dumping of the waste. And I'm not sure it is to name and shame people. I think we need to go after the people who can catch them. And I also, a lot of fly tipping, it's very hard to identify. But I welcome this opportunity to increase the fixed penalty, and we should do our best to as best we can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally,
thank you, Chair. It's just a clarification. Are we still debating the amendment? Have we tipped the full substantial motion? Thank you.
Okay. Is that it on the amendment? So do we go to the vote on that? Sorry, Mick. Right.
Thank you. Same page on this. A tool against issuing £1,000. What I do object to is everybody £1,000 for every officer's use their discretion and take things on a case basis. But yes, we should start looking at times. And as you know, we're going to be far enough as we've ever done in a civic year, and we'll continue.
Now vote on the substantive.
Chair, that motion is carried.
So the amendment that now becomes the substantive motion. So we need to do another vote. Any more on that? Ralph. Yeah, you do your right of reply, mate.
Thank you very much. Well, look, colleagues, again, thank you very much for a constructive debate, and it's been how this issue impacts all of our. I just want to take a couple. Councillor Barnard raises an incredibly enforced by Councillor Graziano that actually the current fine of £300 if paid within, I think, 14 days is absolutely criminal. Less more for a skip than to pay that fine. And what we need to do that people's behaviours with respect to this change, people understand that it is completely. Can I take the opportunity to that he does in his communities, Hitchwood? He goes off Breachwood Green and Whitworth, and it really does make a difference to the community, and it really contributes pride of place. Councillor raises some incredibly important points. I'm sure that those suggestions will be. Farmers are so often at the end of this offence, and you does have the fund which gets some money towards the clean waste. It is not enough, and we to engage with our farmers. They are heard, and that we are from their experience.